Hey, everybody, and welcome. If you don't mind turning your cameras on, if you have them, if you have access and the technological ability to do that, we'd love to see your faces. Please stay muted for now, and we'll ask you to unmute when you have your questions ready. If you need to test your microphone out, we're happy to do that, but hopefully you've already figured out your tech needs. We are recording this so that teachers and schools and students that aren't able to make it can watch this later. Don't worry, we'll blur out all your faces. You don't have to worry about being seen online by anyone you don't know. We're excited to answer your questions here. We'll just wait a few more minutes. We have a few more schools kind of getting settled. So thanks so much for your patience, everybody. It's great to see you. Maybe give a wave if you can hear me and you're excited to be here. Oh, that's great. Thanks for joining. We're so thrilled. Well, there might be a few more classrooms joining late, but we'll just dive right in. I just wanted to welcome everyone to our second annual, or we've been doing this for 7 years now, but this is our second Native Filmmaker Initiative Film Club of 2022. Our November spotlight is The Trails Before Us. And our Native Filmmaker Initiative Film Club aims to bring more Indigenous stories to our festival, which is, most people know us as the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival. But year-round, we are a film institute that aims to educate and reach classrooms like yours across the state and work with teachers and build curriculum and bring in films at no cost. So thanks so much. I'm so glad we got to reach some of you and got to involve some new faces here as well today. We really work to support and engage the Indigenous media arts community and have a greater impact on community youth like yourselves. My name is Julia Sherman. I'm the Director of Education here at the Institute. And before I get started here and introduce our special guests today, I just wanted to make a quick land acknowledgement. And that is that I am coming in from Missoula here in Montana. And Missoula sits on Salish land and it is in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel and Kootenai people. And Montana is home to 12 tribal nations, 7 Indian reservations, each with its own culture, language, identity, and history. We're really uniquely located to elevate Indigenous voices here, and we hope that each day we can all strive to celebrate those stories, histories, and expressions of Indigenous people across our state, North America, and across the world. So if you'd like to say where you're coming from in the chat, please say your school or classroom, and where in Montana you're coming from and where on Native land you are, if you know that. So a huge shout out to Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation for supporting this program, as well as Humanities Montana and the Office of Public Instruction. As most of you have participated before, but run of show is you'll keep yourself muted for now. I'll kick off with a few questions. And then we will invite you to unmute yourself. We encourage you to do that if you have the ability. If you're feeling a little shy, that's okay. You can write your questions in the chat and we'll get to those questions that way as well. We have a lot of eager faces here. We have about 10 classrooms joining us from across the state, so we'll try to answer all of your questions. So thank you so much. Our film today, The Trails Before Us, follows 17-year-old Diné mountain biker Nigel James as he coordinates a first ever Enduro race in the Navajo Nation. And I hope most of you have seen this film today because we'll be digging in with director Fritz Bitsoie and OPI's Mike Jetty. And Fritz, I wonder if I always introduce people, but I figured today I'd let you guys introduce yourself. Would you mind a short, brief introduction of yourself here for the students so they can see your face and hear from you?
Yeah. Hi, good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon. Yeah, it's what I would say back home. It's funny how you say to make a short introduction, whereas like back home are known to make really long introductions because our clans are all included. But basically how I would introduce myself is I would say, Fritz Bitsoie Initia, that's my name. I'm born for the Edgewater clan. It's my mom's side. Not Tachini, but just Chin. And I'm my father's side of his mom's clan would be the red-cheeked tobacco people, red-streaked tobacco people. Then on my Che side, which is like my grandfather on my mom's side, that would be Che. And then on my grandfather's side, on my dad's side, that would be Sinanjini. So with those 4 clans, we're able to make kinship. We can identify family members, and even like before getting married and you meet somebody and they tell you their clans. If the 2 first clans meet, even if you're not blood related, you can't get married. So there's deep like stories involved with our clans. And um, I re I live out in Oakland, California. I'm originally from the Navajo Nation, but it's always a really beautiful feeling when I'm on the public transit, either on the bus or on the subway, and I meet another Navajo person, and you can introduce yourself and immediately find out that you're like brothers, or maybe you're an uncle, or maybe they're like your grandfather or something. So it's always something I'm really proud of to be able to share with everybody, and I'm just excited to hear if there's any what questions everybody has, and just I just have so much gratitude for Big Sky to put this program together, and to show the enthusiasm for the story, and that it has resonated with so many of you. So thanks for having me.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Fritz. We're excited to have you. And Mike is joining from Helena here in Montana with the Office of Public Instruction. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself briefly here before we get started?
Well, hamitaki api, peto waste yuha, peto lilo o snielo. Hello, my relatives. It's a good day today, and I also said it's a very, very cold day here today. And so my name is Mike Jetty, member of the Spirit Lake Dakota Nation and the Turtle Mountain Anishinaabe descendant. And thank you, Fritz, for giving us that Diné greeting about, and then saying where your clans are from, because that's really cool to know that. I descend from the Tizaktana Tioshpaye, the 5 Lodge Band of the Spirit Lake Dakota Nation. And so those are my cultural roots. But glad to be here with you today. I work with Indian Education for All at the Office of Public Instruction. And I get to work with my colleague here and boss, Zach Hawkins, and we do curriculum and professional development to teach about Indian Ed for All. And cool movies like this Navajo biking film are some of the stories we get to share across classrooms in Montana. So I'm really curious to hear what you thought of the film and your questions today for Fritz today, because and then I've got questions too that I want to ask Fritz during this meeting. So glad to be here, and thank you, Julia, for hosting us today in this platform. All you do.
Well, it is certainly my pleasure. Thank you both. It's really exciting. And one of the reasons we chose this film this year, our theme was kind of building self-confidence through sports. And obviously this film is about mountain biking and so many other things. I wonder, Fritz, if you can talk a little bit about how you first met Nigel and how you decided you wanted to make a film about him.
Yeah, so I was going through like the New Yorker, and I came across a story on Nigel. I guess there was some from Rwanda, there was some bike riders who came to visit who were making their way through the country, and somehow they had met Nigel. They, Nigel's family invited them back to his house, and they showed him, they showed those bike riders like the trails they had out there. And I wanted to make something about the Navajo Nation. As I said, I'm originally from the Arizona, New Mexico area. And living in Oakland, I find myself in many situations in which I get to meet a lot of people who may not have ever met a Native American person. I've been fortunate enough to do quite a bit of traveling internationally, and sometimes it can be a very unique experience to meet someone from like Hungary who will still ask me if we like live in teepees and stuff, or they'll tell me that they have an Indian name, or a lot of things that could come off as very offensive, but to me it's just curiosity. And so since I'm a filmmaker out here in the Bay Area, I thought it'd be kind of cool to do a story about Nigel. We could also tell it in a very contemporary way. We could incorporate different type of cinematic techniques to make it feel like a movie, like very very Western like and slick. But also I wanted to highlight a lot of like the traditional teachings, a lot of pepper in a little bit of like little details here and there that celebrate what I love about growing up traditionally, about the teachings, about the way some of these teachings are given, through you might have heard it when Marvin talks to Nigel, or when Marvin's talking. That's a very common way that we're given our teachings, is like you take something that is that could be like an everyday occurrence, such as a wheel spinning, and then you turn it to a teaching about something else that makes it relatable. I think that's something I've always loved about getting to talk to medicine men and getting to talk to my parents or my grandparents. But all of those things, this film just came from a place of love and respect. And my mom would always tell me, you do things with good intentions, and that was just always my guiding, my lighthouse, so to speak, was just to come from a place of learning. I'm Navajo. I grew up Navajo, but I don't know the entire experience. So meeting Nigel and getting to know his family was a really great opportunity for me to learn more about myself too.
Mhm. Well, his family seems so open and welcoming. I'm sure they felt like family after making this film.
Well, I don't know. Like on the first day we showed up, she's like, "Who's this guy showing up with like, we had a big like boom with the big microphone on top with a big fluffy sock, and we had a camera guy show up, and they were shearing sheep, and I think they were all a little bit hesitant about what we were trying to make, but by now we're all buddies, and so I'm super grateful to have met them.
Yeah, certainly a good first impression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Students, do classrooms have questions? Feel free to use the hand raising icon, or just raise your hands and unmute yourself and come up. We can kind of go round robin here as folks have questions. Okay, Logan's class, we'll go with you first. And please say your name and your question so we can put a face to the name.
Hi there, my name is Will Mitchell, and I was wondering what your favorite part of the documentary was to film.
Oh, that's a nice question. Thank you so much. I'd have to say the intro was something I really fought for. When we were making this film, I had some creative input from my team saying like, "Hey, it's a mountain biking film. Why are we opening with grandma, or why is it kind of slow? Like what's with this whole intro? It's kind of strange." But I love samurai films, and like in those old samurai films, like there's usually like an opening where it's all landscapes and very meditative, and then you have a voice coming in with like those really cool subtitles. And I wanted to like replicate that and see if I could do that with the Navajo language. And I feel like the Navajo language itself, it's typically featured in films when it's like time to make a prayer, or maybe in songs. And I just wanted to showcase it in its own part, to where it's just nice to hear it. I don't think it gets heard enough. And being able to feature that at the beginning of the film was awesome. And we also got to shoot it on film. We took out some film cameras out there, and also the lightning strike. If you remember, there's a part in the film where there's a lightning strike. We got that on film. And if you're not aware, like shooting on film is incredibly expensive. So we were kind of just wasting film, like shooting in the middle of the darkness at a thunderstorm, hoping that we would capture a lightning strike. But after we burned through about like 10 minutes of film, we finally caught a lightning strike, and that was a very expensive shot to get, but I think it was worth it. But yeah, thanks.
Very cinematic.
Yeah, thanks.
Great question. Any other classrooms that feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you so you can unmute yourself. If anyone has. There's someone at Ronan Middle School, maybe? I think I see a hand up. Feel free to say your name and then ask your question. Oh, we can't hear you. I don't know if your sound's working. Maybe come up to the microphone. I don't think we can hear you. I don't know if your audio is working, Ronan. We'll come back to you.
You
We'll
can
come back
type your
around, but
question in the
feel free to
chat,
type
too.
your question in the chat and we can answer that one next. Alexis Nickerk's class, I see a hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself, say your name and ask your question. Oh no. Oh, there we are. All right, say it one more time.
My name is Shay, and so I'm in second grade. My question is, how old was Nigel when he started bike riding?
Hi, I think that's a good question. I think Nigel, when he started writing, he said he was in 5th grade, which, when, if I remember correctly, that's maybe like 11 or maybe 12 years old. I think before that, he used to ride horses a lot and was doing rodeo. And I think when he was 14, he took part of this race where he biked, I believe it was over a course of 3 or 4 days, but he went on a bike ride for like 250 miles. And the story goes that he just wanted to see if he could challenge himself to do this bike ride. And he was at the point of giving up because he said it was just so boring to just ride on a flat road. And the entire time he was looking around and seeing all the mountains and the hills and daydreaming about riding those types of trails instead. But when he finished the bike ride, I believe that was what helped encourage him and his family to dedicate himself to this sport. Yeah.
Great
But-
question.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat from CMR High School in Great Falls, and they were curious if they ever had to change the terrain to accommodate the trail riding.
Yeah, so thanks. When we first started to learn about Nigel and we were wondering how to approach this story, there was interest about other bike riders around the world who build trails and they also protect them. And what set Nigel apart was when we talked to him about the trails that he builds. He kind of laughed at the question and said that he doesn't build anything. He just uses his grandmother's like old sheep herding trails. To him, he thinks that they know the best way down a mountain, so he just follows them. And he was right. When we arrived out there with our cameras, if you looked at the ground long enough and just started to study the ground, you could just see like sheep tracks all over the place. That was a really beautiful thing to see. But they would incorporate in the film, as you saw, like using a tractor and making some sweet jumps. And I think now they're starting to get interested in creating something a little next level. I think they dream about making stuff that you would see over like an Oregon, or stuff you would see in like down in Alabama, where there's like wooden features and stuff, which I think is awesome. I hope I can go back out there and see that when they see as it evolves.
Great. I see a hand up in Lara Bellis's class. If you'd like to unmute yourself, say your name and ask your question.
Say your name, Charlie.
Hi, my name is Charlie. Why did you decide to make the shots longer?
So it seemed the story could have been longer.
It seems the story could have been longer.
How do you just choose your shots?
How did you decide to choose your shots?
Oh, thanks. Thank you for your questions. Yeah, I wish it was longer too. I was fascinated about all the different people we met. It was really hard. It was really hard. Like for example, with Nigel's dad, Marvin, we recorded over 2 hours of him just talking, and we captured so much footage and so many shots that was easily 5-6 hours, I think, of just footage that we had, but we had to cut it down to 13 minutes. I think the first time we saw the film, it was 17 minutes, and I felt like, I don't know how we can get it any shorter. But thankfully, when you're working with a team, you start to decide where do we want the story to go. We don't want some people to feel bored, or we don't want it to feel too self-important, or just trying to keep in mind that the length of this film, we originally wanted it to be 13 minutes. I think currently a lot of people who invest in these kind of films, they see that TikTok and YouTube and Instagram stories, they see the value in more like 1 minute long videos. Like that's kind of what they want. And so it was a little bit difficult for us to fight for a 13-minute film. And even 13 minutes in this current day and age, it's considered a little bit longer. But I'm happy with it being 13 minutes, but I would love to spend more time with other people. I mean, there's that one guy in the film who says, he says something like, what's important for me right now is just laughing and just, writing and laughing. And that's the only line that guy says. But Frank is like the most peaceful, like kind guy I ever met. And he was so funny. And he's a mechanic that fixes all the bikes for all the bike riders. He teaches kids how to maintain and fix their own bikes. He's like a certified mechanic with all these tools in the back of his truck. And that was something I wanted to explore more, but we just didn't have time for it. But for sure, there's like, everyone deserves their own chapter in this film.
These are great questions. Aurora from Ronan Middle School is curious what Nigel's favorite part of riding horses was, if he rode many horses.
I think for Nigel, it was this kind of sense of calm and peace he had when he was just writing. I think he also has the tendency to want to do more like stunts. Well, like he wanted to ride faster. I think he prefers the bicycle because he doesn't necessarily need to like he can go faster, and he can do jumps, do things on that he can't necessarily do with horses. But I think when he rode horses, he was more interested in like doing some of these like rodeo type activities, whether it was like roping, stuff like that. But I don't think it was like bronc riding or anything that extreme.
That's a great question. And actually, I'm curious if Logan's class, since you guys have working audio and video, I have a question here from Hayden Lewis, if he wants to just come up and ask it himself and unmute himself. This probably sounds better coming from him than me.
Yeah, we're getting Hayden up here. She's gonna come right up.
Oh, great.
Hey, I'm Hayden Lewis. I was wondering also, my question's also about horses. Does anyone in your community or in Nigel's community still like ride horses often?
Yeah, they do. I think they had 3 or 4. Nigel's grandfather, who you saw near the end of the film, that guy was just amazing. I loved him so much. He at the very end of the film, when you see like when our names are showing up and there's different shots, there's a shot of these like old tin cans with like horns and a skull hanging up on the beam. When we arrived to shoot and we told him we'd be there the next morning at dawn to get the footage of him with the horses, we arrived at like 4:30 a.m. and we were setting up, and he met us out there, and he was really proud of that little the tin cans that were hanging from the top of the corral. And he just prepared so much for us that day, and he's super sweet. But he also told us that those cans that are hanging up in the corral are actually the noisemakers that Nigel's grandmother, her grandmother was using those tin cans as to make noise to help like herd the sheep. But every morning, his grandfather wakes up every morning and they take care of the sheep using going on horseback, and I believe they're out there for like at least 10 miles every day, like rain or shine. And he has this amazing Instagram account where he's taking photos all the time while he's out on these trails riding the horses. So they're a big horse family.
These are great questions.
Yeah.
I have a question from Carolyn's class at Willard Alternative High School, and they were curious if there were any women in the biking club.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Yeah, there was one of the prominent members in the sheepdogs crew. Her name is NT Garcia. She was a little camera shy. I think we wanted to ask her to be more in the film. We wanted to feature more female bike riders. But she is part of this group called Yash Trails, and they help build trails on the Navajo Nation, like giving advice about which places to avoid or like how to do it sustainably and respectfully. She was incredible. There was also a few more female riders that we saw out there. Her mom was like wearing a cast, like hiking her way up the mountain, just proud to see her daughter riding. And I was just so surprised to see, like astounded to see the amount of like community that exists there. And it feels good to see more female riders out there. I have a 2-year-old daughter, so I'm excited for her to get on a bike someday, and it would be wonderful for her to see people she can like look up to and see like it really does matter to see yourself in a way on a screen and say like, hey, if I can do it, I can do it too, you know.
It's a great point. Jay Charlo from Ronan Middle School is curious when filming you ever caught any funny moments on camera.
Yeah, I think there was a time when we were setting up for a shot where Nigel was gonna be jumping off a little cliffside, and I don't know if he used it. But we were kind of scared because he just kind of came off the cliffside, and we asked him like Leo, the guy who's a cinematographer, the director of photography, he said like I don't think I captured it right. I don't think I captured it really well. Can we do it over again? So I asked Nigel like, hey, can we do that again? Like, how many times can you do this jump? And he was like, yeah, as many times as you need. It was really scary because we wanted to get some cool shots, but we also didn't want Nigel to get hurt. Because if we got hurt, then we wouldn't be able to shoot the movie. So there was that balance that always took place. And also like at the very end of the film, when we got the drone shot and all the guys were riding, that felt a little bit like herding cats because everybody was so excited to be riding and doing their own thing that we were on foot and we were running around and at the top of this mountain. And thankfully everybody came together and we got those drone shots that we needed. So it was a great time. It's a great time.
Yeah, I'm sure it's gotta be a little unnerving being in that position. I might ask Logan's class to unmute themselves so Walker Butler can ask that question himself. Sorry to make you guys type it and then ask it. You just articulate yourselves better than I could articulate you.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Wait. Oh yeah. How long do you, wait. How long did it take to film? Wait, no, that's not it.
I just want to ask how long do you think it'd take to make a whole movie by yourself?
Oh yeah. How long do you think it'll take to make an entire film by yourself?
Oh, like alone? Like
Yeah.
I think it's possible to do something like in I'd say maybe 2 weeks, maybe, but I would not have been able to do this on my own for sure. It benefited to have people that really specialized in their own craft, so that way I was able to just focus on directing. It was incredibly rewarding to approach somebody and say like, hey, I want to shoot it on film. I want it to be like super wide. I want it to look like a Western film. I want the colors to be a certain way. And it really helped to have it was a big learning experience for me to acknowledge that like that you need to trust other people with your vision and trust people with their feedback and with their input, and that there's value in hearing what other people have to contribute. Because I think if I did this all on my own, I don't think that even to the basic part of just talking to the family and just having the interview questions land, I think it would have been really hard. I've made films on my own in the past, but they don't quite look or sound the way that I would want them to. And it just helps to have somebody around who like knows how to record when it's windy, or someone who knows how to get the right exposure of the camera when it's like sunset or something, or or to make it look like it's noon when it's really like 9 a.m. So you can do it like in 2 weeks if you want to do it by yourself, for sure, but it's actually more fun when you have like friends who help you along the way.
That's a great point. And actually, Bailey from CMR High School in Great Falls had a question about this specific film and how long it took you to film all of Nigel's story from start to finish.
Yeah, we did.
Short film.
We began about a year ago. Well, actually, a year ago about now is when we finished like post-production, editing, color grading, working with a composer to write the music, working with another company from San Francisco to help us design the titles and all the words and the translation and stuff. That took about 3 months. I think it could have taken 1 month, but that took about 3 months. Shooting the film with Nigel, that took about like 5 days, maybe like 4 days of shooting, then a day for like traveling, with about 9 people we had were out there. Before that, when we first met Nigel and we had the idea to make the film, myself, Leo Mako, the cinematographer, and Pancho, the audio engineer, we pooled our resources together and raised about, maybe about close to $3,000. And we flew out to the Navajo Nation to meet Nigel, to pay for our plane tickets, to pay for our hotel, and to pay for the equipment and stuff to make like a 1 minute, trailer. So all in all, like it started from like March of 2021, and then we finished it in November of that year. Yeah.
That's great. I'll ask a few more student questions, and then we'll punt some questions over to Mike there so he's not getting too stiff. But I was curious if Alexis Nickkirk's class wanted to unmute themselves. I saw you had a question in the chat, but I figured you'd want to ask it yourselves. Oop, I think you're still muted. Try one more time.
I'm Taylor, and has Nitro ever gotten hurt?
Hi, I think he has, before we started shooting with him, but I don't think it was really anything like super major. And thankfully they take the sport really seriously, and they always make sure that they're like padded up and that their bikes are working. I remember there was a day when I wanted to shoot with them, and I thought it would be fun that if we had some footage of them just riding as if they were just friends, in just doing trails, just riding trails one day with their buddies, and they're not wearing their racing gear, they're not wearing helmets and stuff, just like I did when I was a kid. They were actually really offended by that question. And they told me that, they wear their helmets every day. They take that stuff super seriously. So that's when it occurred to me that that these guys are like pretty serious about the sport. But yeah, thankfully he didn't get hurt.
Yeah. I know it seems like a dangerous sport. I don't mountain bike much, but when I do, I'm always I'm always scared of going downhill.
Yeah.
Logan's class, if you want to unmute yourself and ask another question, it might be our final question. And then if we didn't get to your questions, we will, I'm sure Fritz would be happy to answer them and email us with the
Yeah,
answers.
totally.
I'm going to read Breeze for her. She's wondering what Fritz thinks the most important takeaway from the film was. And she's also wondering, was there something that you learned from the experience that changed your expectation of how the film turned out or the direction it took? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So what I want people to take from the film most, it's almost like I want people to see that mountain biking in this community is like that it just exists without any type of like I didn't want anything to feel over romanticized or almost like you're going to a circus and seeing a community of bike riders like this and thinking that it's like something so special and something so unique. I just wanted it to feel like it had always been happening, and that when I first wanted to make this film, I always remember a question I had from somebody that they said that Nigel had a really nice bike and that it was like kind of expensive, and how did he get that bike? And that kind of hurt me, because I feel like he has supportive parents, and why can't a Navajo kid have a bike like that? Why does it have to be such a weird thing? Or why does that question have to come along with that? And so hopefully making a film like this, it can help contribute in a way to where it normalizes this kind of world. And what I learned along the way was like you just have to trust the process. I didn't even anticipate a race being part of this whole film. We wanted to focus more on Nigel and his father, and his family, and just day to day. But when we arrived out there, Nigel was like, "Yeah, I guess we're gonna have a race," and it was like, "What? We didn't really plan on that. We just thought it was just gonna be like getting some race footage." But turns out while they were preparing for us to go out there to film, Nigel and his buddies just for the heck of it, they were timing themselves coming down these trails, and they kind of brainstormed and thought like, why don't we just have a race instead? And so adapting along with how the story was going, and learning to trust that, because it was a bit scary to be out there, not knowing if I would have the story that I wanted, or if I was unable to get some of the footage I wanted. There's a part in the film where Nigel and his dad are standing next to a horse corral, and you can see that the ground is all muddy and wet. It rained really bad to the point to where the roads were all washed out, and we lost like 6 hours of filming time, in which we were supposed to show them getting a sweat lodge built, and they were going to be sitting in a sweat lodge, and we were going to light it really cool, and it was going to be an awesome part of the film. But we couldn't get that, and I was terrified, because I felt like we don't have enough to make a movie. We don't have enough to have this vision that I originally wanted. But you just kind of trust the process, like it's just almost like unwrapping something, or in a way that sometimes people who discover dinosaur bones, like it's always been there, and your job is just to like brush away and discover it along the way. So that's kind of how I would describe it.
I like that metaphor. And it's also a nice reminder to kind of be patient and push through, even when it feels difficult or things aren't coming together. Sometimes it's for the best to get a little creative.
Totally. I've always considered obstacles as just the universe's way of asking you if it's really what you want.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I actually have a question for Mike, and then we're going to have to unfortunately conclude. I wish we had a lot more time, but we could talk all day here. But Mike, I'm curious if you can talk about the importance of this film in the context of, you know, in the state here, it's a constitutional mandate to teach about Indigenous education, and we have a whole system of essential understandings around that. So can you talk a little bit about what a film like The Trails Before Us kind of plays a part in all of this?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a great conversation, and I've just been enjoying listening to the questions, and nice job answering all those, Fritz. It's cool to hear how the process worked and stuff. You know, we have our essential understandings regarding Montana Indians, and they're broken down into 4 themes of diversity, culture, history, and sovereignty. And I can see all those themes reflected in your film. And I think that's really important to put information, movies out like this, documentary films that are made by Native people, so we can hear those authentic voices and perspectives that maybe a non-Native filmmaker might not have. And so I think that's important to show the diversity and, you know, something unique to, you know, that's Navajo culture and mountain biking. You know, when you think of Navajo, how many of you think of mountain biking? But we want more people to think that way, right? You know, and there's a my buddy Zach here mentioned that there's a mountain biking team from the Northern Cheyenne Reservation and Lame Deer now. And so, you know, there's a movement going on in Indian country, I think, where we're, you know, just participating in everyday activities, but oftentimes you might not associate that with Native Americans. And so like the film about skateboarding, this really powerful film, and how many of us think about Native Americans and skateboarding? Or the next film that we'll be showing is about fly fishing. And you know, how many people associate fishing and Native Americans? I mean, historically, maybe in contemporary settings with tribes that are, you know, fishing societies. But I think exposing, you know, students and, you know, Montanans just to these other stories, I think helps broaden our perspective, and just a more inclusive look at, you know, the contributions of Native people. And pretty soon, maybe we'll have a Native designed mountain bike out there from Navajo country or something, you know. Wouldn't that be cool? And so, you know, who knows what could come out of this kind of stuff, though, as more people engage in, you know, healthy activities too. It's the kind of thing that, you know, for a wellness perspective, it's a good, healthy thing to be doing, getting out there, get some exercise. And that last shot, though, Fritz, I wanted you to mention this about the drone footage and when they're riding on the cliff and stuff, and because I thought that was just a cool scene. So maybe you could just say that, talk about that for a second.
Yeah, we worked with the drone company from Albuquerque. They came down for that day just to help us out. 2 guys were controlling the drone. One was flying it, the other one was controlling the camera on it. We had some really cool footage from the drone. But in the end, I really wanted to show the impact of the moving camera with the last 2 shots, with riding alongside the cliff, because most of the film, my idea was to just plant a camera on a tripod and not move it. I wanted to have the film look like a whole series of postcards, and we would just have Nigel riding through these postcards. Was kind of like what my idea was. So I didn't want the camera to pan or tilt or any of that, except for the race day, because that was chaotic. But when we got to the end of the film with the drone, that was all intentional to like, let's show like how, I don't know, how awesome it is that they're riding right alongside this cliff's edge. And so I'm really glad that part came in pretty strongly.
Yeah, it's just a cool way to end it. So
yeah, thanks.
Well, and I can't not ask if the Enduro race is still going on and where it's at today, and if it's becoming an annual event.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they had a follow-up this year. It was bigger than ever. They had like vendor tents, and it looked like a proper festival, so to speak. They had a huge amount of people coming to support the scene, and that felt really good to see. And I'm just happy that it's continuing to grow. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wonder here before we leave, if I could get maybe just students could raise their hands if they're interested in mountain biking or they're excited to see this film about mountain biking in the Navajo Nation. Just raise your hand on camera if you're a mountain biker out there.
It's great to see.
Great. And, you know, a lot of this film too is, and this film club is about spotlighting important people doing important work and a diversity of people doing that work, such as documentary filmmaking. And we'd love to hear from you if you are interested in filmmaking, if you're interested in getting involved, maybe you make videos on your phone. We have a program that actually culminates during the film festival, which Fritz actually came out this last year to visit us. So you get to meet real life filmmakers as a part of the process. So if you're in high school and you're interested in applying, we have a program called the Teen Doc Intensive, and we bring you out to Missoula. We put you up and you get a festival pass. So I'll put my email in the chat if you have students or know of any students that might be interested in applying. Fritz, I think a great note to end on would be any advice you have to students that are interested in filmmaking, how to get involved, how to get started, and advice that you learned along the way.
Don't be afraid to dream big. Like, just write whatever you have in your head and write it down, and make friends that are like just as passionate about as you are, and help each other out. And just accept that you can't do it alone. And I think when I was in my undergrad or even back in high school making films, I thought there was something cool about being able to know how to light, shoot, edit, do everything all on my own, because I thought that it was cool to have my name as all these under different credits and all that stuff. But now it's everything's better together. You're all helping each other on your own projects, and luck is 95% preparation. The rest is just being in the right place at the right time. It's amazing. I couldn't have imagined last year in January directing something like this or making a film that has had the impact it's been experiencing. But I knew that I had this desire to try something different, and just have, and also, like, your path is your path. If your buddy is like making all these award-winning films, or your buddy is like has all these followers on TikTok or YouTube and stuff, and your content's not getting looked at, like, just don't, their path is their path, yours is your own, and things will happen for you, like, because you're working for it. So that's what I would say.
Like, that's a really important thing to keep in mind. It's easy to judge ourselves in this very social media heavy world we live in.
Yeah. And you have good ideas, and trust that you do. And
yeah,
good ideas are worth money, and people are willing to invest in it. So yeah.
Thanks for that so much, Fritz. Mike, is there anything else you want to add today?
Sure. I wanted to share a cool fun fact. If there's any Star Wars fans out there, any students that ever seen the movie Finding Nemo, that there are actually Navajo versions of those movies that people from the Navajo Nation worked with George Lucas and the makers of those major films, and then were able to make Navajo versions of those in the Navajo language. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That filmmakers are allowing that, and really neat. So you can hear Darth Vader and R2-D2 talking Navajo.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, well, thanks everybody. Unfortunately, I have another meeting to run to, but pleasure meeting you all, hearing your questions, and thanks for watching it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. We have one more film in our film club series that's spotlighted in December. So if you want to go to our NFI Film Club site or send me an email at julia@bigskyfilmfest.org, we'll make sure to get you registered and watching and participating in more film clubs. But until then, we will see you next time. Thank you so much, everybody, and take care.
Bye.